All right, so I'm going to do a short video on the quadratic formula. So here you have a quadratic equation, and this one you actually can factor. So if you wanted to factor this one, it would actually factor into x minus 1, x minus 2. And you can see that if I solve this, x would equal 1 or x would equal 2. So this one actually is factorable, but I'm going to solve it using the quadratic formula as well so that you can see that you do in fact get the same answer. And then we'll do another example that you actually will need the quadratic formula for that is not factorable. So first, the quadratic formula is x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and that's all over 2a. Well, what does that all mean? So if you take a look at your original equation, the coefficients in front of these numbers are, this would be your coefficient A, this here is your coefficient B, and this here is your coefficient C. Now, in this case, there's nothing in front of that, so A is just going to be 1. So in this case, my B is going to be a negative 3. Make sure you take the sign with it. My A is going to be a1, and my C is going to be a 2. So you're going to take these values and you're just going to plug them into the equation, just like you see. So I'm going to have x equals minus, and now I'm going to take this minus 3 and put it in. So it's a minus 3. Well, two negatives will make a positive, so I'm just going to change this right now to positive 3. So it'll be positive 3 plus or minus the square root. Well, I have to take this negative 3 and square it. So negative 3 squared minus 4 times my A value, which is 1, and my C value, which is 2. I'm going to divide that whole thing by 2 times A, which is 1. So there's my quadratic formula. Now let's go through and simplify it. 3 plus or minus the square root. Well, negative 3 squared is negative 3 times negative 3, so that'll be a positive 9 minus 4 times 1 is a 4 times 2 is an 8, so that'll be 9 minus 8 all over 2 times 1, which is 2. Well, I know 9 minus 8 is 1, so this will be 3 plus or minus the square root of 1 over 2. Well, I know the square root of 1 is just 1, so this will be 3 plus or minus 1 over 2. So in my numerator, I have 3 plus 1 over 2 or 3 minus 1 over 2. So I'm going to do those separately. So, oops, I have a piece of tape on here. You won't be able to see what I write, this piece of tape. I'll write it over here. 3 plus 1 over 2 would be 4 over 2, which is 2, or 3 minus 1 over 2, which would be 2 over 2, which is 1. So my answer is 1 and 2, which you can see is exactly what we got up here. Let's do another example now, and let's do one that's not factorable. So I'm just going to make up an example. I don't know how it's going to come out, but we will see. Let's see, I'll have 2x squared plus x minus 3 equals 0. All right, so now in this case, my A value is 2. My B value is 1, because that would be my B value, and there's nothing there, so 1 is understood. And my C value is negative 3. So if I plug them into my formula, x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I'll have x equals minus, well, my b value is 1, so minus 1, plus or minus the square root of b squared, well, 1 times 1 is just 1, minus 4 times my A value is 2, and my C value is negative 3, all over 2 times my A value, which is 2. So now I've plugged in all of those numbers. Now that I've done that, I'm just going to simplify. So minus 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 minus, well, let's see. A negative times a negative will be a positive. So I know this will actually be positive. 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 times 3 is 24. So this will be 24. And that's going to be all divided by 2 times 2, which is 4. So now I'm going to say minus 1 plus or minus the square root of 25 all over 4. This will be minus 1 plus or minus, well, the square root of 25 is 5 all over 4. So once again, now I have two equations. I have minus 1 plus 5 over 4, or I have minus 1 minus 5 over 4. So I have two equations here that I need to simplify. Well, minus 1 plus 5 would be 4 over 4, which would be 1. That's one answer. And this here would be minus 6 minus 5 minus 1 minus 5 is a minus 6 over 4, which I can reduce to minus 3 over 2. And so that would be my second answer. So I have 1 and negative 3 over 2. On a separate video, I'll do one more example where your answer is actually going to be a radical.